Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Gina Missurelli, a lifelong Kenoshan. Welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm just fine, thank you very much for the opportunity to be a participant.
Okay. What is your first memory about living in Kenosha?
Excuse me?
Your first memory of living in Kenosha. Do you remember?
Oh, I can go back to my childhood if you want some of that.
Talk briefly about that, sure.
Yes, I remember my childhood back as far as 3 years old. I remember where my family lived.
Where was that?
It was in Kenosha, in the middle of the city, on 22nd Avenue and 53rd, something in there. But anyway, I remember the fact that we lived on an upstairs flat in a very large home, and there was a big yard in the back. The yard was my play area. I had toys out there. But what's fun, extra fun, was that there was a big chicken coop in the far back. So I had an opportunity to go over there and poke my finger at the chickens, and I unfortunately got picked many times because I tried to encourage them to talk to me, and they wouldn't talk to me. They just picked them on my fingers. So it was a strange thing, and my mother was furious because she says, you could get an infection if something happens. Get out of there. I didn't get to stay too long, but we didn't live there very long, and left after that.
Okay, then you moved into a house after that.
Yes, when I was 5, my parents bought a home near the Bain School, which was about 2 blocks away from where we lived.
Which today is a fire station.
Yes, today is the fire station. That felt all the Bain School friends that I know felt terrible that the school was gone. We all felt really terrible. We had clubs that the girls, mostly it's the women, but we had a Bain School club dinners together, lunches, and because we were Bain School kids, so it was.
So you attended Bain School through elementary?
Yes, Bain School was kindergarten through 6th grade.
Okay. Do you remember anything about those first elementary years?
Well,
what did you do in school? What did you have to learn every day? I mean, what kind of classes did they teach?
Well, starting with kindergarten, it's just basic learning to behave, I guess, because our teacher was a very nice person and was very patient with us. And we were taught how to be nice. We were taught how to do singing. We had singing things that happened with us. There were a few games. The teacher would say, we're going to get in a circle and we're going to play something with games she had made up or whatever. So the kindergartners really kind of just
social
fun,
okay.
From the time you got there till the time you left.
So then those early years, what kind of instruction were you giving in those early years of school?
Well, starting in 1st grade, it all started with the way they started to teach you to write. There wasn't reading at that point, but they were doing writing, and the teacher we had was very kind, patient with us. I wish I could bring more into what the daily work was, but
you had arithmetic as well? Simple addition, subtraction early on?
I don't know if they started arithmetic then or not.
Okay.
I think there was penmanship that started then, but I'm not certain about what kind of learning tools that were being done. I don't remember having a book at that age in the class.
How much penmanship would you say you did in a day at school?
Well, we were given a booklet that had lines on it, and we were taught to do our penmanship according to how the loop of your F's and G's or whatever, it turned out that you followed the instructions in the little booklet, so that you began to copy it over and over and over again until you made sure that you got it correct. And that took some doing. And
you would do this and penmanship you would do every day?
Well, luckily I took to it. I wasn't that bad. Everybody could read. When I finally got to the point of writing something cursive, you could read what I wrote. I had some friends who couldn't hardly get their G's from the F's and the M's and the N's, and it was funny. But you finally get the gist of it because of the amount of time spent doing it. And many times a teacher would ask us to bring some things from home to try and write on.
Okay. Now, when you were ready to go into junior high, you were 12 years old, 6th grade?
6th grade, going on 12 years old, yes.
And what year would this have been that you entered junior high?
Well,
Your first sixth?
Born in 31 and 6th grade.
43, 12 years later?
Let's see, how would that be? Trying to think.
31 and 12 is 43, so that's what you would have been, in 1943 you would have been in junior high.
Yes.
Okay, what kind of studies did you have in junior high?
Well, there were subjects you had to take. You had to do an arithmetic, you had to do a reading, you had to do there was a science, there was let's see, science, reading.
Social studies?
There's social studies was also included, and math was a big, you had to do some math, the requirements.
Sure.
What,
So were there any particular classes you liked?
Yes, I loved reading.
Okay.
And I liked having to write when they asked you to do a paper on something. That was no problem for me.
How about science?
I didn't have science in the young years, but I think in my second and third year, then I took biology and I liked it, and then this last year I took advanced biology. But math was my worst subject, so never did get it.
How about social studies? Did you like?
Yes, social studies was very interesting.
What did you like about it?
Because it was material that made you learn that there's a lot of other places in the world than where you live.
Okay, it's interesting.
And I had a teacher that taught that very well. He must have traveled greatly, because he put maps up and try to get us to remember where this country was and that country was, and it was fun for me. I had no problem with that.
Okay, and when you went to school during these years, basically, you came into the room. What happened? You sat down and sat in that chair all day?
You did sit in that chair. You had permission to get up if you needed to. There was a break, a very short break, 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And you had to put your winter coat in the proper closet
Okay.
before you didn't get into trouble.
Oh.
Then somebody would take your coat, or you couldn't find your own because you don't remember where you put it. That
You sat in that chair
because
then after the
right.
break. Okay. And what did you do then as a teen in junior high school? What kind of activities did you do outside of school? Were there things in school you could do? Did you do things with your friends on the weekends? What kind of activities spend your time?
There were a good deal of friendships among the girls that we started sort of becoming a togetherness in the junior high years. Then we got to be friendly again in high school. Well, in high school then there's a lot more learning to be done, and you had homework, a great deal of homework. So sure, that kind of wasn't the kind of thing that you could just say, oh, I don't think I'm going to do that today. You did your homework because the teachers I had were very, very competent, and they demanded the work to be done. Sometimes it was difficult because it was not something you liked, but it made everybody do it. Getting a good grade was important, trying to make the best of it. So it was forced on you. You had to do it.
Now, I had forgotten when we talked earlier, when you were at Bain School, you mentioned that when you went into the building or out, the boys were on one side and the girls were on the other.
Yes, it was a system that the school had prepared for the way they wanted the children to enter the building, and it was segregated because one side of the building was for girls, and an entrance was for girls, and the opposite side was for boys. And the playground that you had at recess, there was no intermingling. You stayed on your own side.
So girls at one side
Girls
of the
on
playground?
one side, the boys on the other side. The bell would ring. You had to get back in line to go back into the building, same way you came in from when you walked in from the morning.
But the classrooms were co-ed.
Yeah, classrooms were co-ed. The boys and girls blended.
Okay. Do you remember anything about, let's see, 1943 you had started junior high. Do you remember anything about World War II while you were in school?
I remembered a lot of World War II because I like maps, and I like going into learning about other countries. And the war was concentrated, of course, in the European area, and then in the Pacific area. But I kept up with what was going on both sides because I was so enamored with the fact that these people were being killed, people we knew that were in the service. Some died, some of our friends, and it was a terrible thing to have to. The people of the world were just not safe in those areas, and it was a pity for a family to lose children.
Do you remember when you found out that the war was over?
I cannot recall whether they announced it during a classroom in the grade that it was still in school, or whether we found out from the outside world that it was
like
done.
At home?
Yeah. Not certain whether they announced it during the school hours.
Okay. So, were there dances in high school?
They had what they call different clubs had dances.
Okay.
Yes, there were clubs that had dances, and then there was always a prom, which was a big deal every year. And each year there was a prom, which was great if you got to go to it, and a lot of hoopla about the place you went to have your dinner. Children would be able to go to some restaurant, and you were all dolled up with your good clothes, and so you hoped that you were going to go to a good place. But it was fun.
Everybody looked forward to it.
Yeah, it depended on how much you could afford, I guess. But there were times when we went away. We went one time. It was out into Illinois. There was a supper club over the state line. Everybody loved it, and if you could get, excuse me, if you could get your date to get a reservation over there, that was something else.
Okay. Do you remember at the end of the war, soldiers coming home, parades, or any big celebrations in town?
Well, the biggest celebration that I can recall is when MacArthur was brought into Kenosha and had a large parade going down in the downtown area, and it was days of people talking about it. People, the newspaper put a lot of material in it. There was a lot of things from people who were the military had a good part of that.
A lot of people came to the parade that they had. Remember, a lot of people going to the MacArthur parade and cheering. And
oh yes, it was a good thing for people to understand that this man was so important.
And this was after the Korean War.
Yeah.
Or conflict.
Well, the Second World War.
Well, he came in 1954, I believe. So it was after President Truman.
I don't remember how many months after the war was over that MacArthur came. Okay. I don't remember.
All right.
How long.
Were there sports teams in high school that people went to watch and cheer?
Oh yeah, the high school teams were good. There was basketball and football and baseball and volleyball and
Were there any girls' sports in high school?
I participated in the volleyball.
Volleyball. Okay. Did you compete with other schools, or did you just within the school itself?
Just within.
Okay. So now we get into you graduated from high school in 1949. Okay, what did you do after high school?
I got a job. I got a job the very first year after high school. I went to work for a doctor in his office.
Okay, and how long did you work for that doctor?
Only 1 year.
Okay, and then did you get another job?
Yes, another doctor.
Okay.
And that went on for about three to four. I can't really make a decision on 3 to 4. But and I know that the year I was married, well, that didn't appear. No, I don't remember whether it was 3 or 4 years after. And I had been married, but then when I had my first child, and that ended my work life.
Okay, so you were married in 1950?
53.
53 you were married?
And then my first child was born in 1959.
Okay.
And I worked through those years.
Okay. Can you tell me what it was like, what the tone of the city was when Russia launched a satellite into space, the first time anybody did that? Was there any feeling around that Russia, Soviet Union, I'm sorry, had already gone into space and we hadn't?
I don't think it made any difference to me. I thought that it was too bad that the United States didn't do it first, but I don't think I was that interested then in that particular kind of information.
And so when President Kennedy said in 1961 that we were going to go to the moon, Did that change anybody's
Oh, well,
attitudes?
that was everyone became so interested in how they were going to make this happen, because it sounded like sounded like it's just never going to happen anyway, because and anyway, why would we want to go there? But then the military went into doing all this technology to create the machinery that took the rockets to go, and I guess they made it.
And so when we landed on the moon in 1969, what was the tone of the community?
That was big news for a long time, the moon landing. And then the astronauts themselves, they did a lot of television work to talk about what their feelings were, the men that went and could say, I walked on the moon.
And people were really excited and interested in hearing
it was
that?
a very exciting time, yes.
Can you tell me what it was like, what the feeling was in town when President Kennedy was assassinated?
I think everybody I knew felt that it was the most terrible thing that could possibly happen to a president who was a favorite to everyone, that this could absolutely kill a president in broad daylight.
Okay, other things happened during the course of your young adult life. After we landed on the moon, there was the Watergate scandal. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember. I remember when all that went on, because I watched much of that on television and saw what happened to Nixon and all the other men that were arrested for their job doing the Watergate. That was thievery at that time. Was that thievery?
It started as a robbery. It was a robbery to start
it's a
with.
robbery. But they stole
They broke into
documents and.
Yeah, they broke into the Democratic headquarters and tried to steal some documents.
Yeah.
And then when those 5 men were arrested, it started to see or become known that people higher up in the Nixon administration had something to do with it, and that became the whole Watergate scandal.
There was a very good movie that went into the Watergate thing. It was a very popular film. I can't remember.
All the President's Men?
All the President's Men. That was very interesting to find out how much the reporters did to get that off on the press, to get that to the press. Very interesting.
Okay. How about the Vietnam War and the protests? Do you remember much protesting going on in Kenosha during the Vietnam War?
I don't remember much about that. I can tell that there were 2 close friends to my husband who were both killed, and it was a sad thing for us to lose friends over that killing, that terrible
war.
tragedy. It didn't seem to be as important anymore. That war just kind of, it was in the news and it was on television, but isn't something as captivating, you know.
You think people just got tired of it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It was a senseless war, we thought.
Okay. How about 2001, 9/11?
Well, 9/11 was a jolt to many people, and it took a long, long time. I don't know whether it created enough hoopla for a year's worth of press and all the things, but the idea of our country being attacked so mercifully that it was like not real, because there were 4 or were there 5 sites that were attacked on the bombing.
There were at least 4 targets, I believe.
was the last one in Pennsylvania.
That's plane went
plane
down
went
in
down
Pennsylvania,
because
headed to the White House is what they
Yes.
believed.
Forced down.
It was. The
Yeah.
passengers
The
took it down.
passengers. It was shocking to think that those people could get away with it, and they did.
So how about your own life situation and living in Kenosha? And let's say after World War II, a lot of people started moving into Kenosha to get jobs. Do you remember that feeling? People from the South would come up and they would get jobs at
It happened.
Nash
It happened.
Motors.
I don't think I can give you a year, but I know that after the war, there was so much new people moving in from Illinois. Number one, the property values were good. Number two, the schools were much better. And so those people wanted to get in, and taxes were different, decidedly different. So families that moved into Kenosha kind of built up the entire west side. And that came very quickly.
Yes, that would have been in the 80s or the 90s when Whitecaps was built.
I'm not sure of the year.
Okay. How about shopping in your early adult life? Where did you shop? I mean, how far did you have to go to the store? Where were the stores?
Well, there were grocery stores. The family grocery stores were still my favorite for a while. And then came the big stores, came into Kenosha, from the big monster stores where they had tons of merchandise that we didn't ever see before in the mom and pop stores.
Okay, you're talking about the National Tea
Yes,
store and the A&P store?
Yeah, the A&P was a big favorite for everybody. It was wonderful to be able to get just within our own city that kind of merchandise. And then our downtown actually was a wonderful downtown because there were wonderful stores, had great merchandise. They serviced all kinds of people with clothing and other things. There were many stores that had what you call children's things. We had some very good children's stores. And that was nice for us that were bringing up young children at that time. So there was so many things with toys and other activity things that they would enjoy. I remember there was one store that was so popular. Mr. Wilson had a dime, it was 5 and dime, and he catered to so many things for children. Everybody wanted to buy from them. There was no lack of what children's toys could be. There was
Right.
Sears and Roebuck was another one that carried a lot of children's toys. So if you had youngsters, you knew where to shop. Mm-hmm.
When did that start to fade, if you will?
Well, then, in my family, it was when children were not doing this anymore. When they were starting to go to junior high and high school, they weren't playing with toys. They did outdoor things, you know.
But when did downtown change? What caused it? Where did people shop instead to make downtown change, or was there another reason?
When I was very young, going downtown was a big treat because there were so many good stores, and so I know that I had lots of nice clothing because there were 3 5 and dimes in Kenosha. That was comprising, and each one of them were downtown. Then they had all the things that a 5 and dime has, and one of them had an escalator. Whoever knew there was an escalator in Kenosha? But one of the 5 and dimes was a very large store.
Was Woolworth's.
Kresge's.
Kresge's?
And it was fun to go and get on the escalator, but then somebody who was watching the kids coming out of Bradford and going downtown to fool around were making sure that they got enough kids to just get out because that wasn't a toy. They weren't supposed to be doing the escalator as if it was a toy.
Okay, when did the stores that you remember being very good end up losing customers?
Well, many of them were operated for many years because the merchandise was good and it didn't make you have to drive out of town for things. Our downtown was healthy with whatever was offered to the public for a long time. I'd shop downtown, and friends of mine also, my family, rarely went to Racine. Up until maybe, well, I'm not sure I can give you a year, but as long as it was available, it made less traveling to go to Racine.
Did it change when shopping malls came in and moved
When
out?
Kenosha got its first mall, no, Kenosha didn't. Racine got it, and that was a big deal. Before Racine got the mall, in Illinois, in Waukegan, there was a brand new mall that we had never seen or heard of, and that was that drew a lot of trade for a short time. Everybody had to go to the mall. Wambold? No. Trying to think of the title. Wambold? Something
The name
like
of
that.
the mall?
You remember the mall?
Gurney Mills?
No,
Was
not
that it?
Gurney Mills. That
Okay.
came later.
Okay.
The first mall was just outside of Waukegan on Highway
Okay,
41,
okay, I don't
and it
know.
was
Okay.
Weebolts, because there was a
Weebolts.
Weebolts downtown Chicago,
Okay.
and that was one of their little satellites.
Mm-hmm.
And when you could drive, wasn't that far. When you wanted to see a real big mall, you went to Weebolts just to
Okay.
get the merchandise there. Then Racine got a mall, which was very nice for Kenosha. It was a good mall for the size of our town.
Okay. When you were in junior high, you went to Bain School. We know that was on 22nd Avenue and 52nd Street.
Yes.
You went to McKinley Junior High, and you had to walk to 33rd Avenue, across 30th. What was it like? How far did the city go?
Well, it didn't go too much further. I don't think there was much building and traffic until Highway 31 became popular. When Highway 31 became a two-way street, not just
Okay.
a one-way. But then there was a lot more building for people that
From
stores
30th,
and
from 30th Avenue
yeah,
out then.
yeah.
So there wasn't much.
not an early start. It didn't start real early, but then some of the other big companies came in too. The Sears came, and the Pennies came, and the Wards came in, and can't think of how many other
And that
large
built-
merchants that were in Chicago area. They started coming into it too.
Okay. Other things that you might remember. I-94, Interstate Highway, which kind of took over for Highway 41.
That was a marvel. That was really a marvel because
people-
41, it was a good road, and it went all the way through Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee, and further north, wherever. And it started, I think 41 started on the East Coast.
No.
I'm not sure.
No,
But
it was part of the interstate system. It didn't. But
Then they started with a
yeah,
interstate.
the interstate system began in 1954, and it started to build across the country.
Oh,
I don't know that I-94 came through until maybe the late 50s and started to be built. to connect Chicago, Milwaukee.
Well, that created a lot more trucking people.
Right.
We all noticed so much more truckers when they built the interstate, so much.
But it was easy to go from Chicago to Chicago or back and to Milwaukee and back when interstate came.
Yes.
Before that, it wasn't as easy
No,
to make that
the
trip.
41 was very much slower.
Just a note on something that may have changed a lot over the course of your lifetime here. Trick or treating. Back when you remember your kids trick or treating, what was it like?
Well, it was lots of fun. You know, parents participated. The costumes. The children always had to have costumes, and then there was so much of the neighbor friendships. You know, were always good to the children. So later on, it just seemed like there were more people less wanting to be around during the Halloween night, especially if it was night. And then when we started getting a lot more people coming in from out of town that would come and flood the area, and tough people that absolutely didn't belong in our area, but they came over because the gifts at Kenosha's were generous, and they would get nice candy or sometimes money. And, so it was, I think it's dying out. I think that what used to be a big deal, the kids dressed up in funny clothes and paraded, that seems to be gone. I don't even see that in my neighborhood any longer.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you
Been a
for
pleasure.
inviting me for my remembrances. You know.